I believe the technical term is flim flam. Welcome to the Escape Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Power Rangers.
Yes, Power Rangers, the shows, the toys, the movies, the video games, the merchandise, all of the above. We're talking about it today.
That's right, Dave. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me your first memories of the Power Rangers. When did you start watching?
My very earliest memories consist of being out at my second cousin's house up in Minnesota in summer of 93 prior to the show airing, and I remember watching TV there. Never had heard of the show, didn't know anything about it, didn't know it even existed until I saw this very first commercial. And it was like a promo saying coming this fall or something like that.
Okay.
A new kind of superhero. I think it was something to that effect. And then they were showing like clips and the little videos here and there
Okay.
of the Power Rangers, and being promoted as this new show coming on Fox Kids.
Okay. So you specifically tuned in. You knew about it.
Yeah, because I was already into comics and
Okay.
superheroes, and I was like, it's being promoted as a superhero
Uh-huh.
show, but it was crazy to me that it was like a group of superheroes, and they all had these crazy colors. And
Mhm.
I remember thinking, boy, I hope there's a green one. And much to my surprise, there wasn't. And then eventually he showed up as a bad guy, and I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Then he became a good guy and had all.
I remember, like most things, I'm always behind
Okay.
on things. This happens to me constantly. So I remember kids talking about it, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And I don't know, I guess I wasn't really interested, but I would hear about it all the time from kids, like on the playground.
Yeah.
And I think one day I just happened to be home flipping through,
Okay.
and I saw it, and I knew what they looked like, so I knew it was them. And I remember it was the episode where who I now know was Jason. He was on the moon base or whatever, and he was not in his suit, and he was like squaring off against Goldar, and there was like all this like mist or smoke.
Yeah, so that was actually that was the dark dimension. That was not the moon base. There's a difference.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you are the aficionado. Well, between the two of us, at least.
I know exactly which episode you're talking about.
Yeah, and I remember he eventually like he's hidden down like under the mist, but like somehow Goldar can't see him, and I don't know. But that was, I think,
remember
when I finally started like watching it and then kind of getting caught up with the other kids. So tell me more about your experience with the show.
Yeah, so I remember finding out that okay, this show's gonna be coming on at 7:30 in the morning every weekday before school.
Wow, really?
Monday through Friday.
7:30. What a terrible time to put on a show for kids.
Yeah, I don't know why, but that was when it came on.
Well, at that time they didn't know if it was going to be a hit.
Yeah, and so I set my alarm on my my bedside alarm clock in my room, and I would get up at like 7:20 or 25, something like that, just in time for it. And it was like it became this tradition of mine to watch it prior to going to school. And this was right when my 4th grade year started, and so I mean, this show was an instant hit for me. I did not have very many friends at school. I maybe had one good friend at school at the time, and this was before I even had met you, obviously. But so at the time I was like watching the show, and like these characters, they became like friends to me. Like in my mind I was like, man, these like,
you had Ross, you had Chandler, you had Joey the Red Ranger. So wait, this was 93,
yep,
right?
93 was when it premiered.
Okay. So I looked into it. So the show, or at least Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, only went for, I think, 3 seasons, and I think it was 145 episodes.
That sounds about right.
And then they did the movie? or was the movie somewhere in between,
The movie was
like,
the
seasons?
movie came out while the show was still airing, and the movie was not in the same continuity. Like, it was a different universe. It was a different canon.
Okay, see, and I didn't know that.
Nothing about the movie affected the
That's a
show.
strange thing to do, to do a
Yeah,
movie in the middle of a season,
it is.
but not have any of its events alter it. It's like the X-Files, they did the X-Files movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of the same thing. I can't
Yeah.
remember if it was like between seasons. But at least for
Same thing for
X-Files,
Star
it's the
Trek.
events of the movie, I think, do carry over into the next season or the next episode or whatever. So that's kind of interesting. When they did
Yeah.
what was the next series after Mighty Morphin Power Rangers?
So I believe it
Zeo?
was Zeo, Power Rangers Zeo.
Okay, so let me just run down the whole list here. So you have Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Alien Rangers, Power
Mm-hmm.
Rangers Dio, Turbo, Power Rangers in Space, Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, Power Rangers Time Force, Power Rangers Wild Force, Power Rangers Ninja Storm, Power Rangers Dino Thunder, Power Rangers SPD, Power Ranger Mystic Force, Power Ranger Operation Overdrive, Power Ranger Jungle Fury,
Get yourself a drink of water.
Power Ranger RPM. Then it says there was a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers reversion. I don't know what that's all about. Power Rangers Samurai, and then also slash Super Samurai. Power Rangers Mega Force slash Super Mega Force. Power Rangers Dino Charge slash Dino Supercharge. Power Rangers Ninja Steel slash Super Ninja Steel. Power Rangers Beast Morphers, and Power Ranger Dino Fury. And the Dino Fury one, which is the last one to list, says it ran from 2021 to 2022. So that's the newest one as far as like an actual show.
That sounds about right to me.
Okay.
Now this is starting to get more out of my wheelhouse of memories and things, because I watched the show, I think, up until about the middle of season 2 was really when I started to fall off
And
of
what
it.
about that?
I was getting I was getting older. The fact that the Green Ranger was like my favorite, and the fact that he left in the first season and then came back in the first season, but his powers were limited, and so he didn't have as much involvement. And then when season 2 began, they all got new Zords and things and new powers, and but Green Ranger still had his old Zord. He did not get a new Zord, and I was like, man, they're really leaving the Green Ranger like in the dust here with all the cool new stuff that the other 5 are getting. And then eventually during the beginning of season 2, Green Ranger was written off again, and then he left the show, but then obviously he came back as the White Ranger, and then he was all cool and popular. And at that point I was like, man, I'm just not cool with that.
Okay.
Like, I respect. I remember as a kid, I remember thinking I respect the White Ranger because of his story and his powers, and the fact that he's the new leader of the team now. But Green Ranger was where it was at in my book. And it was like Green Ranger got mistreated as far as I was concerned. And so by that point in season 2, I really did not follow the show anymore. And I know that there was a lot of more, like, there were more people coming and going on the team, and like characters leaving and new characters being written in. And by the end of the show had transitioned from, for at least here in, Southeast Michigan, it transitioned from airing weekday mornings before, school, to it became like a once a week Saturday morning thing by this end of by season 2, really. And so I was watching it less because it was on less frequently, and I was just losing interest fast. And so by the time, I remember one time I was over at my grandmother's house and I had spent the night. And so that next morning I was eating breakfast, and it was a Saturday, and I was just flipping through and I was like, oh, there's a Power Rangers show. I wonder what's up with that. I haven't watched it in a while. Let me see what's going on with it. And it was like, it must have been the series finale, or something to that effect, because I saw the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, basically their command center was destroyed. They were looking for something called the Zeo crystal. A bunch of bad guys had infiltrated the command center, and a bunch of things got destroyed by bad guys. And so the command, I think the command center was just in ruins, and they found the Zeo crystal, and it was supposed to be like the source of their next big power supply kind of thing for their new Zeo powers. And so they got it going, I guess, in this episode, and they all kind of switched their colors up a bit for Zeo. So like White Ranger became the new Zeo Red Ranger, and like I think the Red Ranger became blue, the Black Power Ranger became green. I don't remember what other combinations got for that switch up happened, but they changed it up to keep it interesting, I guess. But I think it went from 6 to 5 by that point. Also, I think Billy, the Blue Ranger, did not get a Zeo Power Ranger. Like he didn't get a Zeo thing. So he stayed out of. He was more like a. I think he stayed on the show as like a supportive character. Like he was at the command center a lot, helping to figure out bad guys' plans and helping, kind of like Alpha, the role of Alpha 5. He was kind of like Alpha and Billy became like the same, like two sides of the same coin as far as the purpose of their character.
So okay, you're saying the Alien Rangers now?
Yeah, the Alien Rangers, I don't know why it comes up as its own listing, because I thought it was a part of the original show. They were just characters that were on the original show.
This says,
Unless it was like a weird thing, like a marketing thing, like during the original show, maybe they marketed it as a whole different show, even though it was still
well,
on the
according
original.
to Wikipedia, which we know
I
is
don't know.
100% correct, it says Power Rangers Alien Rangers was a miniseries set immediately after the end of the third season of Mighty Morphin. So yeah, let's actually, let's kind of get back into the beginning here.
Yeah.
So you had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon,
Mm-hmm.
which I
Yeah.
feel like probably this was getting some of those fans, like ninja action type stuff, obviously. And it's like,
As one of those fans, I can tell you, yes,
right.
it was very, very, very much
Ninja Turtles went from what,
enjoyable.
87, I think, to 96, which is astounding to me. Because I remember when I stopped watching Ninja Turtles,
Really?
I didn't realize it went on as long as it did. But okay.
I didn't know it went that long.
But yeah, Power Rangers was adapted as this, what was it? It was a Japanese show called Super Sentai,
Yep.
which I looked that up. That show apparently started in 1975 and is still running in some form or fashion. And
Yeah. It started. I think the English pronunciation starts with a Z. Zuku Ranger or something like that. Hold on, I
I
really
looked it
don't
up.
know
It
if
said
I'm
Super
pronouncing it
Sentai,
correct.
but I know Saban, is that his name? Saban saw it, and he had this idea, or someone on his team had some idea of like buying the rights to the footage and just adding voiceover to it, and we'll shoot some new
Yeah.
stuff with English speaking actors for like the in
Mm-hmm.
between bits, but all the footage was of the Japanese show. Um,
Okay.
so I think if I understand it correctly, it's almost like a remix sort of thing where
Mm-hmm.
he's looking at what monsters they were fighting in the show and then having to make his show about that, like where they're, the big pig guy or something, and then show the footage of
Yes.
the pig guy. So they're just kind of borrowing the fighting
They called
scenes.
him Pudgy Pig.
Okay, so yeah, they're just borrowing footage from that show and just shooting new live action bits to go in between, or their own American stuff between, right?
Yeah, that's basically how they did it. They just
Kind of
took all this.
genius in a way, to
It
like
is. It
you're
is.
saving yourself the having to make all the costumes and all the stuff. The actors didn't have to wear all that stuff at that time. They just did voiceover work, right? Well,
Well, no, there
when
were
you see the
some.
footage of people like jumping around the suits, At that time, that wasn't the actors, right? The American actors, I should say. They just did the voiceover.
Some of it was. Sometimes they needed to film American versions of people in the suits, and so you
Well,
could
yeah,
tell a
maybe if they
difference.
took off
Like,
their helmet or something.
well, no, not even that. Like sometimes there were fight scenes that they like would just real quickly. Like most of the time, no, that it wasn't, but occasionally it would be. And like you'd see like the Green Ranger fight for like 2 seconds, and you could tell like his yellow shield that he wore was it looked like it was made out of like something flimsy and soft and maybe
I
stuffed with
believe the
cotton or
technical term
something.
is flim flam, but
Yeah, but then like they'd show that, but then they'd cut to the other footage from Japan, and it was like clearly a better quality prop that the actor is wearing. So you could see like the shield on Green Ranger is like the biggest giveaway that everyone talks about when you're trying to spot the difference between the the two types of footage is always look for the Green Ranger shield. Also, the white necks, they have like these white turtlenecks that the Rangers wore, and the American versions look like they all had neck braces on. They were huge and thick. They looked like they all had neck injuries.
So the Japanese footage was better quality in terms of like the costumes. You're saying,
Yeah, they had a bigger budget, and
and they've been doing it
they
longer
put
too, since '75. So
yeah, they put more into it, and American version had a very much smaller budget, and it was kind of like, a lot of the stuff in the command center does kind of remind me of the original Star Trek series, or it just looks very low budget and lots of blinking lights and no discernible pattern, and they ran with it. They
yeah,
did what they could do and wrote stories around that, and they
right.
made the best of it.
So I hear in the Japanese version, the Pink Ranger is female, but the Yellow Ranger was a male. But
Correct.
when they brought it over here, I guess they just wanted to have two female characters, and I guess
Yeah.
that's why the Pink Ranger has the skirt with her suit, but the Yellow Ranger does not, because it was a male actor that they were using the footage from, right?
You are correct, sir.
But they never changed that to my, or did they? Like in the future, did they ever try to do that to, I don't, or just leave it alone?
So actually, they never like. Are you asking if they ever gave the Yellow Ranger a skirt?
Sure. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
yeah. So no, they most of the time, like 99% of the
Even in like other series.
yeah, like 99% of the time, that Yellow Ranger, that version of the Yellow Ranger looked the same. But there was one time where they brought back the Yellow Ranger for some like other team up episode in some more recent series, and I think it was a mistake. They accidentally gave the Yellow Ranger a skirt. It might have been like 10 years ago or something like that, but they gave Yellow Ranger a skirt, and she's never had that. And so I think they like may have fixed it in post and maybe like photoshopped it out or whatever, but like if you look at behind the scenes footage you can see it. And but yeah, I don't think you've ever actually seen that on screen as a final
Let's see.
product, but yeah.
Okay, I just looked up a picture here of all the Yellow Rangers, and it looks like there are certain versions of the Yellow Ranger that does have a skirt.
No,
In fact, a few.
well, yeah, like other versions, but as far as like the
Yeah,
Mighty
other
Morphin
versions.
version.
No, no, yeah, I meant like just of all the Yellow Rangers ever.
Okay, in that case, I don't know.
And it looks like eventually the Yellow Ranger was also male at some point.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
But I mean, in the American version
Yes.
too.
Yes.
So
They've
okay,
switched up. I think most recently they gave, for the first time ever, they gave the Red Ranger role to a female as well.
okay.
Very recently, I think.
So let's see. In the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers here in America, it was Jason was the lead with the Red Ranger. What's his name? Wow,
I
Billy.
can help you
Billy
out.
was the Blue Ranger. He was kind of the brainiac.
Yeah.
Trini was the Yellow Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Zach was the Black Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Kimberly was the Pink Ranger, and that was it. There was the five, and Tommy was later introduced as the evil Green Ranger.
Correct.
He was one of Rita's minions or something, right?
That is correct. He was brought on because his character was like the new guy at school. The new and
Was he supposed to be like a one-off character, like maybe an episode or two, and that was it, and he
oh
was just
no,
popular?
because
Or?
they brought him on. they brought him on as, here's my memory of it, because I had been dying for a Green Ranger to be on the show, because green has always been my favorite color since my earliest memories of existing. So when I saw the show, I was like, I hope there's a Green Ranger. And there wasn't, and I was upset, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll default and like the Red Ranger and settle for that as a favorite. But then when Green Ranger was brought on, they brought him on as this new kid at school who was in a karate match with Jason, and he was supposed to be like matched, like they were like the same as far as their skill. And so but and it was brought on as a, I remember they marketed it as a Green Ranger mini series, a 5-part mini series. And to my memory, as far as I can recall, it was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday week long mini series that aired. And by the
But what I mean was beyond that, was he supposed to be a continuing character, or was he just supposed to fulfill that?
Well, yes, because by the end of the series on episode 5, he was turned into a good ranger and he
Mm,
joins the team. And that was his introduction to the show.
okay.
He joins the team by the end of that, and then you know, it was pretty exciting. I mean, for me, I can remember at the time there was some like issue with my grandfather who lived down in Kentucky needing heart surgery for some big. It was like a big deal, and my so my mother had to fly out of, or not fly out, but she went down there to be with him for that week, and so that week I was living with my other grandparents for that week. And I remember like life was weird for that week for me. Like me and my brothers, we were living at my grandparents' house here in Michigan while my mom was down in Kentucky with her
Where was your
family and my
dad?
other grandparents. And my dad was, working
Mm,
like swing shift. He was working like 8 hours, 80 hours a week. So we couldn't just be home.
gotcha.
So for that week, it was so strange that I remember like my grandparents taking me and to school and picking me up and helping me with my homework and like living at my grandparents for a week. It was a strange memory, but I'll never forget it. But it was at that same time that it happened to be the airing of this Green Ranger miniseries for that whole Monday through Friday uh, time. And so I watched it every morning and I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And I'll never forget it. And by the end of the week, I remember the Green Ranger joined the team as a good guy on the 5th episode, and that was also the same day that my family got the news that my grandfather made it through the surgery, and it was like good news day. Everything's gonna be okay. Green Ranger's on the team. My grandpa's out of
I
surgery.
like that you put the Green Ranger join the team as the first bit of good news. Then the grandpa's gonna.
Well, it was just like all these things. It was just all these like things happening all at the same time. Yeah.
I know, it was just funny the way you ordered them. Okay, so what is the actual story of the Power Rangers? Like, okay, so like Zordon, is
Well, you could
he?
probably Google the plot synopsis.
Yeah, I'm asking you. You're the
Yeah.
aficionado. I never knew.
So
Like, why is he in this too? What's the story? Tell me the whole
the
thing.
story. Okay, so
Like,
who you?
who is Zordon? Who are they to Rita? Like,
Okay,
what's
so
did he used to be a ranger? Like,
I
what's
only
going
know the
on?
American version. There's a
Yeah,
whole
that's
other
fine.
story that goes way beyond anything I know for the Japanese version of story explanations. But yeah, so uh, I have a very fuzzy memory on those details, but
Well, just give me what you got.
Zordon was this guy who he was,
Is he alien? Is he
I
human?
don't know. I think he's human, and I think he was kind of like
Okay.
some kind of warrior or a Power Ranger himself, or something like a Power Ranger. Might have been
Hmm.
like, I think it was a. I think him and Rita were like 10,000 years old or something like that, and there was something, I can't recall if Rita was the one that did something that trapped him in that dimensional like thing that they called it a like a the tube that he was in, the floating head. It
Hmm.
was like a gateway
Yeah.
to like some other dimension where he existed and he was trapped in this dimension, and the big tube was the only way he could communicate,
So he's trapped in an alternate dimension.
yeah, to this dimension.
So they used to fight on like another planet before they ended up on Earth
I
together,
don't
or they
remember
always
that.
been on Earth?
I don't
Do you know
remember
that
that.
much?
I think it was another Earth or another planet thing.
Okay. Isn't it like something like they show like some astronauts like see like her capsule or something or whatever? And
Yeah, so they open it up on they're supposed to be on the surface of the
okay,
moon, which is funny because it looks like just some desert out in Arizona. Like it's just a blue sky, and but you're supposed to pretend it's the moon, I
okay,
guess, because it's sand and stuff. But they open up this capsule, and that's where they show Rita breaking out and her minions. They're like, after 10,000 years, I'm free. Time to conquer Earth. And so,
yeah, I remember that from that
um,
part from the intro. So like,
and that was in the,
good,
yeah, that was in it. And I don't know what the story is with them before that, how they ended up in the dumpster or on the moon. They call it
okay. So they don't explain it to your knowledge.
not that I can remember, but I just remember thinking it was weird that they called it a space dumpster. I mean, it was just like a big can. I guess it looked kind of like a big fancy garbage can, but yeah.
Okay, so she hit Gold. Her henchman. There's Goldar.
Yeah.
Then there's like this like white goat kind of guy.
Goat.
Like he was the one that made the like
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of goat esque.
Finster, I think his name
He
was.
made the putties.
I think
What,
his name is
Finster?
Finster. Yeah.
Okay. And then isn't there like there's like some kind of like monkey looking guy? Like I think
What is it? It's
kind of looks like a baboon or something, or
Oh
maybe not a
yeah.
baboon, but he looks like there's like a monkey guy.
Is he like dark blue and he's kind of taller and thinner and slender? Because that's Squat.
And I feel like he had like a monocle.
What?
Wait, what?
There's two henchmen, Squat and
Squat.
Babu. Um,
Oh, his name is Babu.
Babu, like
Okay.
Baboo, probably. And Squat
Okay.
was okay. So let me just look it up real quick. Yeah.
Look it
So
up.
Squat and Babu.
I need to know.
Squat and Babu are Rita's two bumbling henchmen and supporting antagonists in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. But so let's see here. Babu is the tall, slender, dark blue one, and
Okay.
Squat is the light blue kind of. He looks like he's wearing some armor.
Is one of them wearing like a
Yeah,
monocle?
that would be.
Oh wow, I can't believe I remember
Yeah,
that.
Babu wears a monocle,
That's what I thought. Okay. Huh.
and he's looks like
And
he's
is
got
there any
folded
more
in bat
henchmen?
wings or something. I don't know. They never go into that.
Okay, and is there any other like henchmen, or is
Goldar.
that all of them? Right, Gold. I remember
Um,
him with the blue
there's
face and
also Scorpina.
wait,
She came
Scorpina.
in later in the show, during season 1. Um, she's like this lady that is dressed in this gold scorpion kind of costume, I think. And when she is, when Rita throws her wand down to make Scorpina grow to huge size, she doesn't look the same anymore. She actually looks like some kind of monstrous humanoid scorpion. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but there's Squat, Babu, Goldar, Scorpina, Finster, who's the person who makes all the stuff in the back room, I guess, out of clay.
Okay.
And I think that's it.
Now, when did Zed
Yeah,
come into
so
play?
Zed, Lord Zed, he came in at the season 2 premiere. The season premiere of season 2. He showed up and he was like supposed to be this guy who was even more powerful than Rita and was like maybe like a superior to her somehow, like one of her superiors. Like he showed up and he was like, "You've had all this time to take care of the Power Rangers and you've failed, so I'm here to take over and do it myself." And like he shows up and I remember he like makes Rita shrink down to like the size of like a toy and like puts her into like
Yeah, I remember seeing that episode.
he puts her into another kind of looks like a fancy space garbage can that's brown and then puts the lid on it and then they launch it into space from the moon
So
base,
they're
the
not
moon
cool with each
palace.
other. They're not.
And then no, well, not at first. They don't like each other, but eventually, I as I recall, towards the end of the whole series, I think they got married, and then
As these work relationships tend to,
um
blossom into.
Yeah, like yeah, they got married in the show
Okay.
and got turned into humans, and then they were turned into like, well, they were like turned into good humans, and like they're evil. Well, this kind of leads us into the newest show, the newest Power Rangers
Okay.
movie.
So obviously every episode pretty much followed the same format.
Yeah, and Goldar was always like the
Right.
first officer, like the
Yeah.
number one
So every
for
episode
the
started the
bad guy.
same. She would send the putties, which are essentially like what the foot soldiers were to Ninja Turtles. They fight them. They would fight
Correct.
them without their suits on. And then after so long, then it's okay, it's morphin' time. Then they take care of them. Then the main monster would come. They'd fight him a little bit, maybe defeat him, but then she would make
Hmm.
him large. Then they would get into
Not every episode followed this
okay.
format, but most of
And
them
then
did.
she would make them huge. And then of course they would get the
Hmm.
Zords and they would do the same thing. Now,
Yep.
was there ever any episode where she just made them big from the get-go?
No, but
So she just
uh
tried the same method over and
there
over and over again.
correct, and so did Zed. But it's funny because sometimes the monster would get destroyed by like the Power Rangers weapons while they're all normal
Yeah,
sized, and they never had
didn't
the
they combine
got
their
to the point
weapons
where,
too?
yeah, they had like this power blaster thing that they called it, the power blaster, where they had all their little weapons that they each one have, and they put them all together, and it looks like a big ray gun.
See, and I don't remember too many episodes where they even used those.
Yeah, it didn't happen too often, but
Because
it
didn't they
happened
have guns too? Didn't they shoot like
every now
little
and then.
laser guns?
Yeah, they each Power Ranger had like this power weapon of theirs. It was like this weapon that, was like, it was an like Black Ranger
Like the
had the
Black Ranger had an
power axe,
axe. Yeah, I remember that for
Pink
some
Ranger
reason.
had power bow, the Blue
Yeah.
Ranger had the power lance, and was
Okay.
basically a big stick with like two
So
big
a bow staff,
yeah, and then the Yellow Ranger had power daggers,
like a
little
sai,
knives or
essentially.
something, and then Red Ranger had the power sword, and
And
they
then they
put them
all
all
had a little
together.
gun though too, right?
And then they also have all the each one has a little red like laser gun on their hip
But again, they rarely used those, it seems,
every now and
right?
then,
Or
but yeah, not too often. But
okay.
yeah, and it's funny because so Rita had her wand that she would use to make the monsters get big, but
Yeah, I
when
don't know how
Zed
she
took
got that
over,
back.
yeah, I never thought. You never thought about that. She must have gone down to Earth each time.
And pull
But
it up.
it's funny because
Well,
when
she's got a good
Zed
throwing arm.
exactly, but when Zed showed up, he had like this. It looked like a grenade or a bomb or something, and he would like throw it to the Earth from the moon, and it would hit the Earth and make the monster get ginormous.
Even as a kid, I remember at one point thinking like, every day this city is terrorized by these putty minions and a giant monster, and they would show like when the Zord, Megazord, right? That's what it's called,
Yeah.
and the giant monster were fighting. Like you'd see like them knocking into buildings. I was like, yeah, every day, the next episode, all the buildings are perfectly, put together,
Hmm.
no problems. Like there would be like crater footsteps everywhere, buildings knocked over, fires. I was like, no one would really live in this city. Stuff keeps happening every day.
Yeah,
But
there
I
would
also
be.
wondered for a long time, like, I mean, I know this is really thinking way too much into it, but why wouldn't the Power Rangers just, when the monster first shows up, just get their Zords and just squash them? Like, like just annihilate them right there. Why do the same song and dance over and over again? And I remember one time I was surfing online, and somehow it came up like, why don't the Power Rangers do that? And I thought, wow, that's funny because I've thought that for years. Like, why
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
they just do this? And apparently they said if you watch the first episode, they explain why when the monsters
Oh yeah,
human
I
size.
don't even say it. Don't even say it because I think I remember the exact line from the pilot.
Okay.
I
Say it
think
for me.
it's when Zordon told the Rangers. Zordon told the Rangers never escalate a fight unless Rita forces you.
Right.
That
Exactly.
was a rule that you have to follow if you're going to be a
Right.
Power Ranger.
Yeah. Yeah. So there it is. But
There it
I
is.
guess because I didn't, I was kind of late on the game for Power Rangers. I missed that episode. But so anyway, let's move on to the movie.
Okay.
So is it 95 or 96?
Yeah, so it's 95. The Power Rangers on TV have gone through some changes. The original red, black, and yellow Rangers left because the actors in real life, it was some kind of issue with their pay, and they just walked off the set one day. So creatively they were written off and then replaced with three new
I
people.
heard that what it was, the in real life, the Pink Ranger and the Blue Ranger were gymnasts.
And so was Tommy, the actor Jason David Frank.
He was a
Oh
gymnast.
well, no, he was just really good athletically, and yeah, okay.
Okay, I thought he was a martial artist. Like some of them, from my understanding, some of them were gymnasts and some of them were martial artists in real life or had some kind of background in it. From what I heard, that because of this, they were
Okay.
not getting like stunt doubles for certain stunts, and they were having the actors do it themselves, and the actors felt like, most productions you would have a stunt double do these dangerous stunts, and you wouldn't want to hurt the main people. And they were, I guess, didn't want to pay to have these stunt doubles, so they were having them do, since hey, you got gymnastic background or whatever, you can do it. And I heard that was the cause of the quitting the show.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. I never really learned the actual like details of what happened. I just know that I thought it was a pay issue. Like they didn't like.
I mean, there could have been pay involved too, but that's what I heard. So yeah, you had Jason the Red Ranger replaced with
Mm-hmm.
Rocky, Zach the Black Ranger is replaced with Adam, and Trini the Yellow Ranger is replaced with
Yep.
Aisha
And we do have to back up.
in the show. And I remember that
We have to
episode.
back up a little more because by
Back up.
this
Okay.
point, White Ranger is already on the scene. So the Green Ranger. Let's just do a quick story for him. In the first season, they got him off the show because they had the green candle, and it was supposed to be this thing where they stopped the candle from burning, and that would keep him from being in peril. But the candle burned all the way down, which eliminated.
They all had candles?
Well, no, just the Green Ranger did it at first. I think there were other color candles that Rita had, but at this point they just used the green candle for whatever reason. And once the candle burned out, Green Ranger's powers were gone, and he was a normal human again. So he left the show. Then they brought him back because somehow the bad guys like got oh no I remember now they kidnapped the Power Rangers parents, all the Power Rangers parents, and in exchange for their safe return they wanted the power coins to be given to Goldar. That was their demand. And
Oh, I didn't realize that parents were
yeah,
even ever played a part in it.
so they brought back Green Ranger for that one because they were like, oh, what do we do now? Goldar's got all our power coins and our parents. What are we going to do? Well, he doesn't have all the
Mm-hmm.
power coins. We still have this Green Ranger coin. And so they brought back Tommy, but his powers were taken from the green candle. So they're like, how are you going to use this? We have this powerless green coin. And
So wait,
so
what's the source of their power? The coin or the
the
candle?
coin. So, but somehow with
Okay.
Green Ranger, it was different because originally he was a bad guy. And I think that Rita
Okay.
was somehow able to fashion some kind of candle from some kind of wax thing that was on him when he was a bad guy. I don't remember the details. But
Okay.
so they got Green Ranger back. Zordon infused him somehow with some kind of temporary power up, and it stuck. Like, but then he was back on the team as this power. His power is limited, and occasionally he'd be fighting, and he'd be like, "Oh, my powers are weak. I can't go on." But the other five would go on without him, and so he continued on like that for the rest of season one into season two, and then eventually Lord Zed did this thing where they got rid of him again, and Green Ranger was gone for good, and then they started kind of teasing us like there's something going on in the command center, there's some kind of new thing going on secretively. And at the same time they were introducing us to these other characters that may or may not be becoming Power Rangers. Like I think they were trying to throw the viewers off the trail and like kind of just confuse us. But they introduced this White Ranger. They're like, oh, we can see that Zordon and Alpha are in this secret chamber in the basement below the command center, and they're making a new Power Ranger, some kind of new White Ranger is being constructed without anyone being told about it. And so by the time it came for them to reveal this new Power Ranger to the team, the Rangers already knew about it, but they had to kind of pretend that they didn't. And but no one watching knew who this new White Ranger was. We thought, I remember even being a kid watching it thinking, who is this guy? Like it might be some other.
Why would they have to pretend they didn't know?
Because at the time it was supposed to be secret. And like, oh yeah, so I forgot to mention, Billy the Blue Ranger broke in like this secret door and he wasn't supposed to, and he found this secret passageway to this secret chamber below the command center. He found his way down there secretively in secret.
I was gonna say,
no, but he got down there and he like was spying on Zordon and Alpha while they were making the White Ranger. And but obviously White Ranger and Alpha didn't want anyone to know about it, so they had to pretend like they didn't know when it came time for the big reveal. And they never told anyone who the White Ranger was, and the viewers didn't know. At least I didn't know.
I do remember that big hype about who the White Ranger
And so
was.
when they revealed that, oh, the White Ranger is on the team now, and they took the helmet off, they showed that it was Tommy, and he's back on the team again. And so now he's like the new guy. And but this is before the original three, the other three, the white or the red, black, and yellow Rangers left. So here we are. We have the original 6 all together again, but now it's White Ranger instead of Green Ranger.
Okay.
And then eventually that was when the pay issue or whatever the issue with the actors happened. And from what I understand, they literally had a part where it was a day where they all three just walked off the set, and so they had to come up with creative ways to write the characters off. Like they would have body doubles, voice people, like people to come in and try to recreate their voices on the show, have them only show up on the show in their Power Ranger suits, but you never knew and it wasn't actually them. And so eventually they were replaced with those other 3. So
But I thought they showed the handoff.
that was the thing. They showed the handoff you see is of people wearing the suits. And so they're in full Power Ranger.
Are you
Oh
sure?
yeah.
Because I thought for sure you saw their faces.
You might see them, but it was old footage. Like some of that included recycled footage of them before they left the show.
But how could they get them to hand their?
But what? So the actual power
whatever
transfer scene, it was people in Power Ranger suits. You never saw the actors for that.
Okay, but then when they lost their powers, wouldn't the suits come off them and you'd
No,
see
but
them?
that's the thing. Like they transferred it over to the 3 new guys, and at that point you see 2 Red Rangers, 2 Black Rangers, and 2 Yellow Rangers all standing next to each other. And then the original 3 look like they kind of just teleport out of the command center, out of their suits. And you never see the original actors. But that actually kind of works because you kind of get the impression that these original 3 Rangers are leaving, but they're holding on to the ability to be Power Rangers. They were leaving the command center in their suits. They're leaving, and so it's like they have this ability to still be Power Rangers if they want. But then just unofficially, like they're not like on the team anymore, like rogue Power Rangers, I guess you could say.
Okay. So anyway, to the movie. The movie comes out 95.
Yeah. Yeah, so this leads us to the movie. Sorry. Yeah, so that leads us to the movie where we have the 3 new actors. We have the White Ranger, and I think this was maybe towards the end of season 2 when the movie came out. And so you have, at this point, I was really so much less interested in the show. So when the movie came out, I was like, okay, I guess I'll go see it. Just because. And so I remember going to see it, and I remember I went with my brother Matthew and my dad, and
they loved it.
Well, I remember like, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 minutes into the movie looking over at my dad, and he was sound asleep. I remember it was like a matinee on a Sunday, middle of the day, and he's taking a cat nap while me and Matthew watched this thing. But I do remember being very disappointed that here we have this big Power Ranger movie and there's no Green Ranger.
Okay. So I remember going to the movie with a friend and my friend's mom, and I remember noticing. Okay, I was actually excited to see the movie, and I I remember when we got to the theater, I noticed like pretty much me and my friend were the oldest kids there. Everyone else was like really little kids and their parents, and I remember thinking like, I might be getting a little bit too old for this. But I remember we liked the movie, ironically enough,
Okay.
and at that time. And I remember we were talking about like, oh, the part where this happens, and oh, wasn't it cool when this happens? And I remember my friend's mom goes like, I thought it was stupid, and I remember I felt more embarrassed. But I think that was
That's
really
funny.
kind of the end of my fandom in it because it was weird because I was late in the game in the first
Yeah, yeah.
place, and so I don't remember how much longer I watched it, but I remember the budget was better than the show. I mean, the suits I remember looked more
Well, obviously, yeah. Yeah,
better.
yeah.
It was funny because, like, okay, I did rewatch this movie. I haven't seen it in who knows how long, and it's
Yeah.
like it's funny because it follows in a lot of ways the show, but in a lot of ways they're doing new things. I mean, they're going to
Mhm.
another planet, and there's these skeleton monsters, and there's these monsters that come out of rock, and there's these bird monsters, and these ooze monsters, and like they're doing
Yeah.
CGI, which looks terrible. I think even back then it didn't look great. Like, I mean, this was
Oh, it looked
95.
awful.
You had Jurassic
It
Park
looked awful.
dinosaurs 2 years before
You
that.
know what it looked like? It looked like the reboot show on TV. Remember that?
I know of it. I think I was too old for even that show, but I've heard of it.
That's what it looked like. Or I think it was called Beast Wars. There was another one
Okay.
like that.
Yeah, so you had
It was really
Jurassic Park
bad.
come out 2 years earlier, and it looked, I mean, it looked 20 years ahead of its time, and then
Yeah.
you had this 2 years later. It looked wow. But and then I remember when seeing the trailers for the second movie, Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, and I was definitely done by
Yeah.
that point. I wasn't watching the
I
show
never
anymore.
saw
I
it.
never watched it either. I'd be willing to watch it just to see. I don't know what they did with that, but I know it's a new villain for that, right?
Yeah.
And
I think the Turbo movie must have come out in like 97 or 98, I'm assuming.
let's see.
But it was way outside of my being a fan time,
Yeah, I
you
was
know,
done with it by that.
originally.
So, but I thought you used to tell me that you used to watch Power Rangers quite a bit still after, way well after, like you kind of
Well,
got back into it,
it's a
right?
long story. Yeah, it's a kind of a long story about that. But did you want to talk about that, or did you want to get into like merch and other
Well,
stuff
you can
and
go ahead. You can
toys and
tell me
games?
your history there.
Okay. I don't really know why or how to explain it. Like, I don't know why this happened, but for some reason, after I stopped watching Power Rangers around the mid to end of season 2,
Okay.
for some reason the details of the show just stuck with me. Like, I don't know why. Like, I stopped watching the show. I moved on from it, and I guess I was thinking that once that happened, I thought I would just forget about it and forget like the details of all these things. But it must have just really impacted me deeper and in more of a significant way than I was even aware of at the time, because like there would just be details and things about the show that I would think of occasionally on a regular basis as I aged. Like, I remember.
Wait, occasionally on a regular basis.
What?
You said things I would think of occasionally on a regular basis.
Okay, let me
I was just like,
let me
okay,
rephrase that.
okay,
Um, there would be these things that would come up in my day that I would be reminded of the show every now and then. And
on a regular basis.
well, first it started off very rare, and then like
I'm just teasing. Just go ahead. Just tell the story.
it started off kind of a rare thing, but then as I got older, it would happen more frequently. But anyway, like I would see something here or there that kind of reminded me of Power Rangers, and then like I'd be getting older, I'd be getting into middle school and high school, and I would still be seeing something every now and then that made me think of the show, or made me think of some weird obscure detail from the show. And
Okay.
I remember being aware of this, and I remember thinking, why do I still remember these things? Like, why
Okay.
has this show stuck with me as much as it has, even though I haven't seen it in years? I don't know how to explain it. Um and I wasn't watching the show. I stopped watching the original show before the original show was even over with. Even though I,
Mm-hmm.
kind of picked up on kind of what was happening if I saw it on a Saturday, or like occasionally I might see something, a clip here and there. But by 1996, 97, I was done watching the show completely. And I mean, I moved on from it as much as I could, but for some reason it's still stuck around in my brain. And so I remember, fast forward to, like, I don't know, let's see, 2002 was when they had like this big team up episode. It was like the first big team up episode from multiple Rangers from multiple shows coming together. It was called Forever Red. And it was like kind of like a movie, I think, maybe, or maybe it was more like just a regular length episode, but
Like a made-for-TV movie,
I don't
maybe.
exactly remember. But it was like all the Red Rangers from all the shows coming together. And it was kind of cool because even though they had like a
Did they play music by Simply Red?
I don't know about that, but they had like all these characters that I never heard of and never saw. But they had the original Red Ranger Jason come back, and then they had Tommy there together with Jason, because Tommy was the Red Zeo Ranger. And I thought that was cool, but I didn't see that when it aired. I think I saw it way, way, way later. But fast forward to 2004, like spring of 2004. So I'm in my, I guess, my junior year of college. I'm living in Nashville, on a college campus, and I was really, so 2004 is like 11 years after the original show. And down on this campus down there, I was feeling really homesick and not really knowing what to do with myself. One day I was like, there's like nothing to do. I don't know
So you
anybody.
started watching Power
There's
Rangers?
nothing on TV. So I turned on the TV and I was like, I gotta spend my time doing something, or gotta pass the time somehow. So I saw that there was, this new Power Rangers show coming on, and it was called Dino Thunder. And I was like, yeah, okay, I guess I'll check it out,
Mm-hmm.
see what is going on in the world of Power Rangers.
Sounds exciting.
And it was like I wasn't even expecting anything, and like anything interesting. I wasn't even expecting to finish it, but in like the first few minutes of the pilot episode of Dino Thunder, bam, there's Tommy. And I was like, wait a second, Tommy, why is he on this show? Like, because I was somewhat aware of the fact that he left the show during the Turbo years, and I like he wasn't a Ranger anymore, and he like transferred his powers to some other guy who continued
Mm-hmm.
on being that Power Ranger. So he wasn't a Power Ranger for years, and I didn't know anything about this show. I hadn't heard about it. I didn't know that they were going to bring back an original Ranger for this new show. And so he gets on there, and there's Jason David Frank playing Tommy again. He's got a haircut now, but he's 10, 11 years older. And he's in the first few minutes of the show, of the pilot show episode.
Mm-hmm.
So you just see Tommy show up, and he's fighting all these, like, it looks like something like putties, and I think he's in the jungle or something like that, or he's in a really heavily wooded, lots of trees kind of area. And I think I remember him jumping off a cliff at that point and landing in some water. And they go on in that episode and then in that show to establish that and it's not Angel Grove anymore. It's this town called Reefside.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's supposed to be not far from Angel Grove, but Tommy is now living in that in Reefside, and he's a school
It
teacher.
has a jungle?
No, well, I don't know, but I don't know if that was
I
supposed
always
to.
assumed Angel Grove was California.
Yeah,
Did they
probably.
ever say that?
No, I don't know. Probably, but anyway, so he's in this new show, 2004, 11 years later. He's older and he's a school teacher at this Reefside High School kind of setting. And so this Power Ranger team that they introduce on Dino Thunder originally is just three Rangers. It's a blue one, a yellow one, and a red one. And Tommy is their teacher. He's not a Power Ranger yet, but I think
Wait,
eventually.
he's teaching Power Rangers?
No, he's a teacher, a school teacher.
Oh,
And
okay.
but like the three main Power Rangers of that show at the time, they like break into Tommy's like house, I think, and they discover he's originally one of the original Power Rangers. And like,
They broke into his house?
I don't remember why, but
Wait, what? Okay.
they ended up breaking into his house or getting into his house secretively in secret.
Okay.
And they see like this stuff that tells them that, oh, Tommy, your school teacher, is actually one of the original Power Rangers from 11 years prior.
He just has it written down on things, and
Well, no, I think it was I think it was actually some kind of.
he has photographs.
No, I think it was a video on a computer screen or something that like
Yeah.
told everyone watching it the story of Tommy. And so
He had a video on his computer telling his secret identity and all this stuff he used to do.
it was something like that. I
Okay,
think I
very
can't
well.
remember the
Very well.
details, but anyway, so and so in this show, the premise is their powers are it's very similar to the original show. The powers are, based on dinosaurs, and they kind of got away from the dinosaur theme after the original series. But they went back to the dinosaur thing for this show, and each Power Ranger had a dino gem, which was some kind of, that was like the source of their power in this show. It was like a stone that looked like a different color, and you wore it as a bracelet. And it was also your morpher. And I think it was also your communicator. Like they talked into it like it was their wrist
It
communicator.
was the iPhone of Power Ranger things.
Yeah. So, but it was their dino gems that they wore as like a rock on a metal bracelet, basically. And each one wore this. Each Power Ranger wore this thing, and it was their morpher. And I think maybe there was a something else. I can't remember. Like that they had some kind of prop that they used in the morph. But anyway, so they had that, and eventually Tommy became a Power Ranger on this new show, and he was the newest Black Ranger. He was the Black Dino Thunder Power Ranger. And so by the end of that episode, I remember him having a line that said he was leaving, and they were like, well, wait, where are you going? And he said, I've got to go to the store. My closet has little to no black clothes in it. And it's just kind of a joke about the fact that, all the Power Rangers always wear the colors of clothes that the Power Ranger
Yeah.
color that they are. So so when I watched that on that college campus, I felt so like nostalgic and better. And I was like, oh, even though I still missed home, I was like feeling emotionally so much better that had happened, and it totally caught me off guard. And I never expected in a million years anything like that to happen. So, I mean, I was like kind of back into it. I mean, not so much that I was into that show, but just the nostalgic feelings of the original series
Yeah.
and watching it as a kid kind of cropped back up into my life again. And so what happened is at the time, I don't think the original series was even on DVD yet or anything. You couldn't watch it. Like they only ever showed it occasionally, the original show on like some random, I don't remember who owned it at that time, because
Wasn't it Fox?
the license copyrights has, well, the copyrights, the licensing copyright, whatever, has changed hands multiple
Okay.
times in 30 years. But it was Fox Kids originally, but by then it might have been something different. Might have been Disney or something. Anyway, um so I downloaded the original series of Power Ranger episodes,
Mm-hmm.
and I had my laptop with me, and like at the time, my wife and I, at the time, we were just starting to date each other. And so I remember like going up to like her family's property up north, and I would bring my laptop along, and this was like towards the end of 2004. And I was like, I even have a video in my home movie archive of me sitting at a fire pit, uh up in the woods of northern Michigan, up supposed to be up north camping or whatever, but I'm on my laptop watching the original Power Rangers on a pair of headphones. It's pretty funny. But yeah, that was what kind of sparked my interest in it again, was that show Dino Thunder. And so by then I was like so out of the loop, and I kind of did some basic research and found out like what the show had done. I found out about the 2002 Forever Red team up, and like I kind of got updated and briefed on what these characters had been up to in the last
Yeah, because I remember
decade.
one time,
So
like, you maybe I don't know if I called you or something, but I remember you were like, "Oh, I'm just sitting at home eating cereal and watching some Power Rangers," and I was like, "Oh, okay." But yeah. So like getting back to the second movie, the Turbo movie, like I said, I never watched it, but all I know
yeah.
about it is there's a new villain, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
something, D, D, okay, Divatox,
Divatox.
and
I
she's
believe
like at
that
a
was her name.
submarine or something. And then I know,
Mm-hmm.
um,
She's got some
yeah,
henchmen. I don't know their names or anything
but I
about them.
remember by this point, wasn't Kimberly was gone in the show?
Yeah, she had transferred her powers. Pink Ranger powers were transferred over to a nice little Australian actress named Kat. Well, like her actress, I don't know the actress's name, but her character's name was
Catherine, yeah,
Catherine, but everyone called her Kat. Oh, maybe her name actually is Catherine
okay.
in
Well,
real life, I think,
regardless,
now that I think about it.
or I think I heard somewhere about like Power Ranger cameos, and one of them was that I guess what was the Red Ranger's real name? The original Red Ranger.
Austin St.
I heard
John.
that he and what was the Pink Ranger's real name? Amy something.
Amy Jo
That they
Johnson.
show up in the second movie, but they're like bad.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing about this. They were like under some kind of mind control and they were evil or
Yeah.
something.
Um. So yeah, I mean, and then now there was also the Turbo show, right? I think I listed off there was a
Yep.
which one
So
came
that's
first,
the
the
thing.
show, then the movie, or the movie then the show?
The movie first, because this is what was the big difference between the first two movies. The first movie had nothing to do with the show and did not impact the show at
Uh-huh.
all. Maybe influenced it unofficially,
Okay.
but like I remember in the movie they had like the ninja powers and
Mhm.
all that, and they all
No
got different
continuity,
Zord
yeah.
animals. Yeah, but in the original show, in the original series, when the movie came out, it followed suit, and like they found ways to, like, Black Ranger in the movie was the power of the frog, and after the movie came out and it was a big hit and everything, the Black Ranger and like was given the power of the ninja power of the frog in the show, but it was just a little different. Everything was a little different.
Oh, so you're saying they did?
Yeah, it was kind of like they copied the story somewhat in that
Okay.
way and onto the show after the first movie came out. So, but with the second movie, which was the Turbo movie,
Right. It was almost like a pilot in a way.
I believe it was used as an official jumping off point for the series. Yeah, so the movie was like a pilot episode of the Turbo
And
series.
then didn't Zordon eventually die? Like he self-sacrifices or something?
So there was a scene towards the end of, I don't remember which one it was. There was one of those, because Zordon hung around past Power Rangers, past the original
Okay.
show, past Zeo, past Turbo. I think he was way. I think it was. I don't remember how long he was around, but they showed him in there, and there was a Red Ranger, one of the Red Rangers on whatever
Mhm.
show was on at the time, showed up in the command center, and Zordon told this Red Ranger to strike his tube with his weapon, with a sword, and this was going to release some kind of special energy shockwave or something that would rid the universe of evil to some extent. I don't know how this happened, or maybe it was just in a limited way. But anyway, this was the event that when Zordon was destroyed by this Red Ranger, this energy wave went out from that point and across the earth and across the universe. And you see Rita and Zed together, and at this point they're a married couple, and they're surrounded by their henchmen, and they suddenly get hit by this energy wave and they turn into nice
Okay.
humans, and then they start dancing with each other.
What about Divatox? Is she transformed?
Yeah, Divatox, I don't know what happened to her. I know nothing about Divatox.
Because I thought I heard after this that that's the actress became the new Zordon of sorts. Like it was
Now that
the
I don't
same
remember.
actress. Like because I think I saw one thing on like YouTube about like actors that left and came back as different characters, and I thought they said that because I guess there was two actresses that played Divatox's
Okay.
character. I don't exactly know, but one of them came back and she was like now essentially in the Zordon role, and they had her where her like face was partially covered, but she was like in a tube I think as well, but except instead of being like just the head, it was like you
Hmm.
could see her full body, but she was like in the tube, and then she became the new leader.
Yeah, I remember something like that. I think I remember I have an image in my head of seeing the Zordon tube, but instead of seeing Zordon's face in the tube, you see a woman dressed in pink wearing this like flowy out like lots of loose pink flowing fabric,
See, I thought it was white, but anyway,
or maybe it was white, but I remember there was like a mask on her
yeah,
face,
like yeah, just up to like a little above her nose maybe.
which you know why they did that, right?
Corona.
It was so that they could use very limited footage and it could always Corona. That's funny. No, just so they could reuse footage over and over and make it sound like she's saying whatever they needed to say without having to film a whole bunch of different stuff.
Maybe I thought it was to hide for kids, like confuse them, because it's the actress that played the villain. Why is she now a good guy? Like I thought that it was maybe just to hide that for kids.
Oh yeah, it could have been also to hide her identity, I guess, from the viewers.
Now I wasn't. I feel like one time I was flipping through and I saw something about Power Rangers. There was like this kind of dog, humanoid dog, blue dog creature.
Yeah, so I think that was later. I think it was
Was
in
he a ranger himself? Was he like the leader? What was he?
I think he was,
He
and I
was
think
what?
it was like, I think it was a ranger.
Oh, really?
And when you took his helmet off, it was a dog face. Like, and I think I saw this one funny meme. It was like a meme drawing or some like sketch someone did of what it must look like if you could see on the inside of the helmet and you see like this big giant dog snout all crumpled up and smushed.
Wait, so you're saying his helmet wasn't elongated?
No, no, it looked like a normal Power Ranger.
Oh, so when he wore the helmet, he looked like a human. He had a human head.
And so everyone joked about, oh, well, like inside the helmet, his nose must all be smashed down.
That's weird that they didn't just make the helmet match his head, but okay.
Right? I know. I don't understand it, but I think that's how it went down.
Okay, so let's move on to the newer movie, the Bryan Cranston movie.
Ah, yes, the Bryan Cranston movie. Fun fact, Bryan Cranston actually was also on the original series.
Yeah, I heard he did a voice, right?
He did a voice of some, I don't remember the episode or the voice, the character he voiced, but at some point he was on the original series and he did a voice of one
Okay.
of the villains, a monster or something. And I don't even know if you could even tell if it was him or not or what is, I don't remember it at all.
Now in the new
Yeah.
movie, they do establish that Zordon was a Power Ranger
Yeah.
himself. I believe he was the red one, and that Rita was the Green Ranger, right?
I believe so.
Originally. And they had some kind of battle and whatever, blah, blah, blah.
I saw the movie once in like 2017 was when I saw it.
Okay. And his team was killed off. I think she was a, like, kind of like a traitor, Rita, because she was the Green Ranger. And if you look at her in that movie, she's wearing a lot of, pretty much everything she wears is green.
Yeah.
So it kind of looks like it makes sense that way. What did you think of the new movie?
Well, I remember thinking it was cool that they brought in the original Tommy and the original Kimberly in as a cameo in one of the scenes.
Okay.
They actually filmed a whole bunch more of them too for the movie, but I think it got cut and it was only like this quick thing you see of them in like a crowd of people
Yeah.
staring up at what's happening. But what I thought of the movie, I mean, honestly, it just I didn't
No.
enjoy it. I mean, I just didn't. I tried it out. I thought, oh, there's this cool like more mature version of the Power Rangers. Maybe it'll be more entertaining, like a modern comic book movie might be. I just didn't like it.
Hmm. Well, I remember one thing about the show. When they were not in their suits, they were pretty much normal human strength, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I remember in the new movie, even when they were out of their suits, they were still strong. Because I remember, like,
Yeah, I think I remember that.
after they get their powers, I remember he like
Okay.
breaks a
Yeah,
sink or something accidentally
I think so.
in human form, like without his suit. Um, so I mean, yeah, they changed some things up a bit. I mean, I don't think it wasn't a big deal for me. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it either. I didn't think like, man, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, but I definitely didn't go crazy over it.
Well, I remember watching it. I remember watching it and thinking it was kind of a chore to get through it, like without
Okay.
wanting to just turn it off because I was so uninterested. But I mean, I liked some of the
Yeah.
Easter eggs, but like honestly, there have been other attempts to redesign and reimagine the Power Rangers as a more modern, mature type of like a Marvel
Mhm.
Cinematic Universe type thing. You'll find some on YouTube, you'll find some on other websites, and like I feel like the fans who have attempted this have done so much better at staying to true enough to the original aesthetically,
Mhm.
and like redesigning the suits to make them look more updated and modern, but also make them still look like Power Rangers. But like the Power Ranger suits in that,
So you're saying you thought the suits didn't look good in the newest movie?
yeah, the newest movie, they just looked so not Power Rangers. Like they just looked like alien armors with multiple different types of color in each one. But like, um, I just didn't. It didn't. When you see them, you don't feel that they're Power Rangers, even though I know in my head that I'm watching a Power Rangers movie.
I I remember the was it the Mastodon Zord had like two extra pairs of legs in the Bryan Cranston movie. So like a mastodon is essentially like a big
I don't
elephant.
remember this.
So it would have four legs. Yeah, but for some reason in that movie I remember it looked like a bug. It like
Really?
had six
That's
legs or
weird. I don't
something. It
remember
was
that.
weird. Yeah, I remember thinking that was weird. Um yeah, I like I said, it didn't I didn't like hate it, but I didn't like love it either. It was
Yeah.
just like, okay, that's fine. Um Tommy is essentially like the Michael Dorn of Power Rangers, where Michael Dorn has been in more Star Trek than any other actor.
Yeah.
Um, Tommy has been in more Power Rangers than anyone else. After that, it's probably Bulk and Skull, right? They continued with the series much
Yes.
longer after everyone else, right?
They did continue on throughout from the original show up until like a long time into it. But I think the last time you see them was at that 2002 uh, big Forever Red team up special that they did.
Okay.
That was maybe the last time you saw them, and or at least one of them. I don't remember, but after that, I don't think they ever showed up again. They got mentioned every now and then, I think.
Okay.
Oh! There was a show that came out.
Power
Uh,
Rangers Bulk and Skull.
no, there was a show that came out a few years ago. Might have been in. Oh dang it, I can't remember now. But it was in sometime in the last decade. There was a show where
Hmm.
Bulk and Skull, the original actors, came on to reprise their roles as their characters.
Yeah. I remember like the thing they were supposed to be like bullies, but I never thought they were like bullies. It didn't seem like they were picking on the Power Rangers themselves. It was more like I remember they were always trying to figure out who the Power Rangers were.
That did not start until season 2, where
So
Bulk and
did they used
Skull.
to pick on the Power Rangers?
I mean, yeah, like Bulk and Skull in season 2. After that all stuff went down, and they were like, "We're gonna find out who they really are." Like the Power Rangers' identities, that became their new obsession in season 2. But in season 1,
What's funny to me is how do they know they're anybody? What if they're not any regular person? Like
because what happened was is the Bulk and Skull characters, they met the Power Rangers and spoke with them at the beginning of season 2 in their suits, and so they were
uh,
like, "All right." after the Power Rangers left, Bulk turned to Skull and he said something like, "We've heard their voices. They're normal people, man. We're gonna find out who they really are.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
track them down."
And then
So
wasn't the other recurring character Ernie? Like
yeah, the juice bar guy.
he worked at the Peach Pit.
But in season one, Bulk and Skull were actually bullies.
Okay.
Like they would always try to cause trouble and like start stuff.
You never watched Saved by the Bell, did you?
Every now and then I did. Yeah.
What was the name of the guy who always worked at the the Peach Pit? That was 90210, I think. What was the name of like the restaurant that they always hung out in Saved by the Bell?
No idea.
Because I remember there was like a guy, I can't remember if he was like a waiter or the manager, but he was like always there and like, he knew them, like the kind of their he was essentially like Ernie was
No
to
idea.
but I noticed Ernie wasn't in the 95 movie.
He wasn't?
He wasn't. At least I didn't see him.
Well, I know the actor passed away, but I
Oh,
don't know when. He may have passed away
hmm.
um for before the movie was filmed. I don't know.
Now, do you remember the other shows that were kind of like Power Rangers? There was Superhuman Samurais, there was VR Troopers.
Oh yeah, I remember this. Beetleborgs.
Okay, Beetleborgs, and then wasn't there one called like Mantis or something like that?
I don't exactly know. I mean, I'm sure I would remember it if I saw pictures. I'd be like, oh yeah, I think I remember seeing that.
Did you
But
watch any of those? Any of these shows?
I think I tried to. I think I tried to watch VR Troopers once and Beetleborgs and those other ones. I think I tried them out once or twice, and I just didn't get into it. And I was like, nah, this is a ripoff. Power Ranger ripoff.
I remember there was this one show that I think it was technically a crossover,
Yeah, they did cross over.
and I'm trying to remember what it was like. It was supposed to be set on another planet, and they had where he met the Power Rangers, and then later he had his own show. And I remember
Yeah.
watching that.
I
I thought it was called Mantis, but apparently Mantis was an even older show about the guy who has like an exoskeleton
yeah.
suit so he can walk.
I do have some things speaking of crossovers to mention. If you may or
Okay,
may not be aware of this.
I'm very aware.
But I think it was during one of the Power Rangers shows that happened after I stopped watching towards the late 90s. There was a series on and they had a crossover episode, or maybe it was even more than one episode. I don't know. Maybe it was, I don't know how big of a deal it was, but the Power Rangers teamed up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And there was a fifth turtle as well, and she was female because at the time there was a whole live action Turtles TV show, I believe. And so they teamed up with the Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ninja Turtles. Oh man, what was that show called? So by this point, I heard of it, but Next Mutation. That was Ninja Turtles Next Mutation.
Oh, okay.
And yes, I do remember one time flipping through, and I happened to see the live action Turtles for that show.
Okay.
And I remember like they showed the Power Rangers, and when the Power Rangers saw the turtles, they actually referred to them as it's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny because I know from the cartoon, because I bought my son the box set of the original cartoon,
Yeah.
that whenever anyone refers to them, it's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like they've come out and actually said this is what we were called, this is who we are. But yeah, I did know that they crossed over the Next Mutation Ninja Turtles show with one of the Power Rangers shows. But man, what was that other show that man, there was another show that I thought it was called Mantis. What was it? Because like I'll be honest, I never watched VR Troopers. I didn't watch Big Bad Beetleborgs, so I've heard of them, but I don't really know what that looks like or what it was about. And then I didn't watch what's the other one? What was the other like similar show?
I don't recall. You're starting to get into some of the things about this stuff that I don't know.
Looking through a list here real quick.
You start to get away from the original series.
See, like Big Bad Beetleborgs, I didn't even realize that Big Bad Beetleborgs even were a similar type
Yeah.
show. I didn't know anything about it. Tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills? Is that a joke? Wow.
And I remember the VR Troopers thing had a very kind of catchy theme song, and it was like "We are VR Troopers" or something like that. But that's all I remember about it.
Okay, the show I'm remembering was called Masked Rider,
Huh.
and that was a spin-off, I guess you would say, or they maybe not a spin-off, but they definitely made there was an episode where the
Okay.
Power Rangers had to go to this other planet where the main character from Masked Rider, I want to say his name was Max, but I could be totally
Yeah.
wrong on that. But they met him, and then later and it was kind of like, I think basically they wanted to have similar shows, and since Power Rangers was so popular, let's have the Power Rangers meet these characters so that hopefully Power Rangers fans will start watching this show. But I remember that Masked Rider.
Yeah. I don't remember it very much other than seeing a picture of him in promotional stuff.
Yeah, because I remember he had this little like alien pet sidekick that was like, it kind of looked like a
No
Furby
idea.
but taller, like almost like Alf and a Furby mixed.
No idea, bro.
All right, so let's talk about the video games more in depth.
Yes.
So I
Well,
had
I was
okay,
gonna say we should probably get into like merchandise in general
okay,
first, um,
very well.
because the toy you can't really talk about the merchandise without talking about the impact that the merchandise had on culture at the time. So I remember
Okay,
the toys were a huge deal to the point where they were impossible to find. Like I remember watching the news with my parents sometimes in the evening, and there would be like a news report on fights starting between parents at the shopping center because they were fighting over the last Power Ranger toy on the shelf.
hmm,
And like it was a big deal. And so there was that, and there was also
okay,
the fact that when the Power Ranger toys came out, and there would also be costumes and things that you could buy. Um, Kids would buy them, bring them to school, and fight about them. Or there were trading cards, there were Pogs. I have some Pogs, Power Ranger
okay.
Pogs, and a Slammer, um, tucked away in my desk somewhere. But it became a big deal, and I remember hearing this news story about how they were seeing increased acts of violence among kids between kids fighting on like at recess time pretending to be Power Rangers.
Hmm.
And they would all be wearing, like, I remember one time I saw like this picture of a kid wearing a Power Ranger shirt kind of thing, and he was supposed to be the kid that got injured at
Hmm.
one of these incidences. But it was it was massive. Like some people, I think I saw an episode of a show called The Toys That Made Us or something like
Mm-hmm.
that on Netflix,
Yeah.
and they talked about how Power Rangers was really only ever about the merchandise to begin with, and it was only ever about the toys, and they made a show in order ultimately just to sell toys and merchandise. That was their only goal in making.
Well, He-Man was definitely that. Are you sure that wasn't Master of the Universe you were watching?
I don't.
Because I know that for sure. Master of the Universe, they made the cartoon just to sell their toys.
Yeah, I think that was the same thing for Power Rangers.
Okay, I don't know.
But so there was that aspect of it. There was its impact on culture and how it instigated all these fights among adults and sometimes kids, and kids pretending to.
I know the that Tickle Me Elmo was kind of a similar thing with the parents fighting like for Christmas time.
That's, yeah, not surprising.
I heard about that. Yeah.
So there was that, and then of course video games, and video games was a different thing. I mean, before I jump onto video games though, because I never actually had a video game myself, I never owned one. I would only ever get to play them if I played someone else's or I rented them from Blockbuster. But
Mm-hmm.
I only ever had a handful of these Power Rangers toys. because they were so hard to
How
find.
many what'd you have?
I had the Green Ranger flip head, which was a little thing where you could push his belt buckle and his head would flip from
I had that. Yep. Mast to unmasked. Yeah.
helmeted to not helmeted. Yeah. Um, and Green Ranger was always my favorite, so I always focused on the stuff that he had.
Mm-hmm.
I had this like it looked like a little like pager that you wore on your belt. I got it from like a store when I was in Kentucky once visiting my grandparents, and I remember coming home with this thing. I thought it was the coolest thing. It just looked like this little. It had a little red light on it, but it was a little plastic green box with a Green Ranger sticker on it that beeped. And I don't remember if it did anything else, or maybe if it opened up and it could hold things or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But so I had that, and I think my brother, he was into the White Ranger, so he had something like he had the White Ranger Zord, the Tiger Zord
Okay.
toy, and it alone would transform between Tiger and like a humanoid thing.
The toys that I wonder like if they were trying to get that Transformers market, because obviously it wasn't. That's the whole thing. Transformers were,
Probably
robots that turned into vehicles, and
very similar. Yeah, yeah, very similar color themed robots that were piloted by humans that came together and formed a big massive robot. Anyway, yeah. So there was that, and I'm just trying to remember the toys that I had. I never had like the main toys, and so like I remember getting when the first movie came out, they had Happy Meal toys that came out,
mm-hmm.
and so they had like Frog Zords and like the Monkey Zord and like all the other like the Falcon Zord. That was the White Ranger's thing.
Yeah.
In the movie was the Falcon, and so I remember one day I was at McDonald's, got a Happy Meal, and it came with the Frog Zord for Black Ranger and a plastic like wrist communicator toy that you could wear. So I remember at that point I was like, okay, whatever. It's not the Green Ranger, but I guess I'll take it because I was still a fan, falling out of it, but I was still like, man, I'm really losing much motivation to be a fan.
Yeah.
And so I had that, and then I eventually just stopped trying to get the toys because they weren't even selling stuff from the. By then, I was falling out of the being a fan, and they weren't even selling stuff from the original season anymore. So I was just like out of it, and then got. Uh, I found that back in like 2010, they were starting to reissue some of these toys, and so I finally got my hands on a Megazord
Mm.
back in 2010. And I got it just to be something that I keep on my shelf, to satisfy.
Okay. Does it actually like come apart or what?
Yeah, it does. It comes apart, and it separates into the 5 original individual Zords and can come together as the Megazord. And my inner child, after 20 years, was happy to finally get my hands on that.
Not to backtrack, but didn't in the show, the original show, the the Megazord, the Dragon Zord, and then there was like this like Brachiosaurus or Brontosaurus looking thing. They all like combined together.
Yeah, so there was a Zord on there. I think it was called Titanus.
Okay. Isn't that funny though that if the Green Ranger was bad, therefore his Zord is bad, that his Zord was compatible with the Megazord? Like you would think it.
There's a whole story to that. Like originally he
Oh,
wasn't.
is there? Oh,
I think originally he wasn't bad, but then Rita like gained control of it and
oh.
made it bad. Made
I thought he was hers guy from the get go. That's why I always thought. I wonder why
well,
his.
Tommy was, yes, but the Power Ranger, the Green Power,
Oh, I see.
was originally a good power, and then Rita like acquired it somehow and turned it into a thing to be used for bad. And so
Gotcha. So you said you played some of the games.
yeah, so outside of toy stuff, I never had the games, but I rented them occasionally. My friend Peter,
Mm-hmm.
he had the game for Sega, the original
I had
game.
that game.
So I would go to his house, play that. I had another friend, his name was Chuck, who had the Super Nintendo game for the movie, which I thought was it was all right.
So that one was for the movie on the Super Nintendo.
Well, they actually had multiple games
Right, but the one you played.
for the Sega and for the Super Nintendo, but I think there was one for the original series, and then there was a movie game for.
Right, but I mean the one that you actually played is all I'm curious about.
Yeah, I think it was for the movie. Um,
Okay.
let's see what else.
Which one did you like, or what'd you think?
Well, the Sega Genesis game for the original show was the best, I
Mhm.
think, because it had Green Ranger, and that's where my bias lies.
Okay. See, I have the game for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers game for both the Sega Genesis and the one for the Game Gear,
Yeah.
but they are not the same game. In fact, I would say, in my opinion, the Game Gear game was better
Okay.
than the Sega game. In that one, you could you like fought putties the whole thing. You know, you did the fought the monster, then you know you got the Megazord and you fought it again.
Yeah.
There, I feel like there was, I think, as best memory serves, there were more villains that you fought. There were more levels. Um, than the Sega Genesis version. I felt was just kind of like just a lot shorter and only very like I think there was only like 6 villains. There wasn't many. You know,
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I do. No, I will admit the game for Sega, even though I loved it, it was pretty short, and uh,
Yeah.
I only beat it once in my whole life, though, because for a while I had a Windows phone, smartphone, like 10 years ago, and Windows at the time had since Microsoft had Windows, the Windows Phone had the ability to download a Sega Genesis emulator on the phone, and you could play any Sega game you could want to play mobile. And so
Yeah.
one day I was at work and we had a snow day, and we all were bored, stuck in the office for 8 hours, and I played this game and I beat this Power Ranger.
Why wouldn't they let you go home?
What's that?
Why wouldn't they let you go home?
Because the snow day was so bad, we all got to the office and the roads were terrible. So we had to wait in the
Mm.
office while this it was like called the Arctic vortex or whatever they called it, polar
Oh, I
vortex.
remember that.
But
Yeah.
we waited all day in the office while they cleaned up the roads, and we ordered pizza. It was a great day at work. I loved it, but I
Oh, okay.
like, still got paid, and so
Oh,
for
that's
the
nice.
first time in my life, that day will always be the day that I remember the first time that I ever beat the original Sega Power Rangers game on my little smartphone, Windows phone. So
Okay. So, real quick, why don't you tell me a little bit about this once and forever, once and always, once in a while, whatever it's called?
yeah, so well, before we get into that, well, it's worth mentioning too that the as far as original actors who played on the original show in the original season,
Originally.
they came, yeah, originally.
And were they secretly doing it too?
There were a handful of a handful in secret, yes. There there were a handful of other like big team up special episodes or TV movies that happened over the years from 2002 until, recently. But the last time we saw Jason the Red Ranger was in the original show when he left, and then they replaced him with Rocky. But well, and then he showed up in Turbo, and then they showed up on the 2002 Forever Red, and then that was it. In 2002, that was the last time we saw the original Red Ranger. Up until I think it was like in 2019, they brought him back, and he was on some new show, and that was when he was on most recently. He reprised Jason, the Red Ranger, and he teamed up with that whatever new team was on at the time, the newest at the time, and they also had other Rangers from other series show up alongside them all together for that. It was a big team up. So there was that, and I think the last time we saw Jason David Frank play Tommy was when he showed up as Tommy on, I think it was in 2018 or maybe 17, might have been 18, but he had what was called the Master Morpher, which,
So he could morph into any of the colors he was.
because Tommy had the record of being the most different colors ever as a, yeah. So he had the Master Morpher, and he just had to call it out, and be whatever color he wanted from his wheelhouse.
I love how because you can't see their mouths, it's like there are always these drastic head
Yeah.
movements with every word and moving my hands with every, sentence I say, just to really emphasize who's talking, I guess.
Yeah, it's to emote because they're wearing helmets.
So, why don't you tell me a little bit about Once in a While?
Once and always.
Yeah, just being silly. Go ahead. Tell me a little about that.
So anyway, yeah, there was that, and so Once and Always came out as a Netflix special a couple months ago, back in April of this year. I thought it was great. I mean, it was a great way to you know pay tribute to the original show for its 30th anniversary, which is this year.
So it's like a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, it is. It was like an hour long or something like that. It's also on YouTube unofficially, but they because the original actress who played Yellow Ranger, Twee was her name. She died in a car accident in 2001, and so this was something they were going to try to do as a way to write her character off. And like at the time when they filmed this, Jason David Frank was still alive. The original cast was all still alive except for Twee, but not everyone agreed to come back for it for the new 30th anniversary special. So they kind of brought back Rocky. They brought back Cat. They brought back a lot of the other Rangers from the original show and from those earlier show seasons. But
The Pink Ranger wasn't there, was she?
the original Pink Ranger, Kimberly, she did not come back. The original Red Ranger, Jason, was not on for whatever reason. And Jason David Frank at the time, he was trying to do this thing with the people that own Power Rangers. He was trying to get them to agree to do some things with some independent Power Ranger related projects as a side project thing. He wanted their blessing basically, and he wanted it to be officially canon. I think, but Saban and the people that run the show behind the scenes did not agree to this. And so, since they didn't agree to do what Jason David Frank was asking, Jason David Frank did not participate in the 30th anniversary either.
Okay.
And this was filmed maybe about a year or a little less than a year before he passed away.
I heard what's the Red Ranger's name again? Austin something?
Austin St. John,
I heard they filmed it in, was it Australia or New Zealand, and
New Zealand.
that he couldn't leave the country. So I think he had some legal troubles, and he couldn't legally leave the country.
Yeah. So yeah, the original Pink, the original Red, and the original Green Ranger, they were all not there. So, but their characters were there. So, because they explained it like this, the power transfer episode where they replaced those three colors. When they teleported out of the command center for good, they were still in their power suits. So they maintained their powers. They just left the team and they became basically like Rogue Rangers because we never saw them lose their powers.
Rogue isn't bad, or just Rogue isn't doing her.
Rogue as in not like Solo, I guess would be a better word.
So you're saying like from that point there was two reds, two blacks, two.
Yeah, like the story reason they gave was the Power Rangers are going off onto some world peace summit and those three had to participate in it or something. So anyway, when they showed up for the new 30th anniversary thing, they were just back and like it was supposed to be their characters, but we never see them obviously, but we hear them. So you see the original Power Rangers and you hear their voices like when you hear them morphing, it's their voices because there's a scene where they morph off screen in the new movie and in the distance you hear recordings of their voices,
Yeah.
ADR, also known as automatic dialogue replacement. So they used Jason's voice as Tommy from 2017 when he was most recently on as the character to hear him shout, Dragon Zord. And then you heard the other ones shout out their Zords and their, calling cards or whatever, their battle cries, their morphing cries. That's what.
So who's the villain?
the villain in this is Rita. So she was killed, or she wasn't killed, but she was in the beginning of this. She shows up.
Turned into a human.
Well, yeah, she was turned into a human originally years ago, but like her power, her evil essence was displaced from her into space or whatever. So that basically they're saying in this new movie, it comes back together, but instead of taking on the form of her original body, it showed up because at the time Billy was trying to bring Zordon back using the wave that displaced Rita. Originally, they were trying to bring Zordon back, but it came back. Instead, it backfired and somehow brought Rita back. And Rita's evil power essence took over Alpha's robot body and transformed Alpha basically into like what it looked. It kind of looked like an evil robot version of Rita. And
So, do they bring Zordon back?
no, they never do. They never get to it.
Do they ever get Alpha back?
Well, yeah, they basically say in the show and in the movie they're like, oh, so we built another Alpha after that event, and
Oh,
so yeah, because there's like a bunch of alphas from over the years. It's been like 3 or 4 different alphas, like Alpha 5, Alpha 6, Alpha 7, Alpha 8. I think in the new one they actually refer to him as Alpha 9, and
aye, 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 aye.
yeah, so there's that. But anyway, to get around the fact that they actually didn't have all the originals back for the new movie, is they just used their voices from recording. Like,
Yeah. So you just never see them take off their helmets, but you hear their voices.
but like even they went to the length of hearing them like when they're fighting, you hear their voices
Yeah.
going, oh, stuff like that, and then you hear Jason David Frank as Tommy one last time in this movie. You hear him say, "Time to finish you," when he's fighting up against Rita. And that was a recording he did during his last appearance in 2018 or whatever it was as Tommy. And then you see him like get sucked up into this machine that is shrinking these rangers and like capturing them somehow, and that's what prompts them to contact these other rangers to help save the day, basically.
That sounds like Ernest Scared Stupid, where the troll turns the kids into little wooden like.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of similar. Yeah, so the Yellow Ranger in the beginning of this movie is actually killed, and that's what they were gonna do because the actress died in real life. So they killed off Trini, and they have like Trini's daughter. I don't know if they ever establish who Trini's daughter's father is, but so throughout the whole movie, it's just like Trini's daughter trying to become a Power Ranger, and the original Rangers are there, like they're saying that's not how it works. You can't do it. And eventually by the end of the movie, there's a big fight on the moon, and Megazord is there, and a couple of the old original monsters from the original series are brought back to life. And
Did they try to make it look like the original show, or is it more modernized or CGI, or what did they do?
it looks CGI. And what's funny is you mentioned the CGI, how bad it was in the first movie. It looks like that. It looks terrible in the new movie.
Oh boy.
Yeah, like I mean,
So did you like it?
it was okay in the
Was it
fact
good?
that they like stayed true to the original design. Like the original Zords look like the original Zords as far as how they look, like the design of them. Even though you can tell it's bad CGI, it's still like it's not changed in any way intentionally to look different. They're trying to make it look like the original Zords just with bad CGI. So, and there's a big fight on the moon, and by the end of that fight, the Trini's daughter becomes the new yellow Mighty Morphin Power Ranger. And so the movie kind of establishes that all these Power Rangers have stayed Power Rangers all this time, just in the background. And especially with Tommy, he still has that Master Morpher. He can be whatever color he wants. So
So they are saying that the other series have happened. It's not like trying to say.
yes, it all happens in the same universe, all the TV shows.
But isn't at one point I thought one of the newer Power Rangers shows it's more like the future, like, or does it always look like modern day?
Yeah, it's all supposed to be modern day, all in the same universe for all the
Oh,
shows.
okay. All right.
So, yeah. I know they're doing a new show now. I know nothing about it. I know that there is some talk about them potentially doing a sequel to Once and Always, but it's just conjecture and rumor. I don't think there's any official.
Yeah, I heard they might do another reboot movie too.
Yep, I've heard about that. Um, I don't know if anything has even started as far as production, or if it's all just still people having ideas floating around.
Right.
But we'll see what happens with the franchise going forward. And in the meantime, I'm just happy to enjoy what I can from nostalgia from the original show. And, we'll see what happens.
I think that's a pretty good place to end it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is about all there is to say about Power Rangers.
Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. And you can find us on Instagram, hashtag the Escape Podcast 16. You can find us on iTunes, Podomatic, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and a million others.
And don't forget to check out our YouTube archive.
Yeah, YouTube.
Which has every episode since the very beginning.
Yep. And feel free to write at escapepodcast16@gmail.com. Catch you later.
Peace. Oh, and remember, may the power protect you always. Dragonzord.
Right. So
forever.